Good evening and welcome to Frankly Speaking, where truth is our mission, reality our realm, set as we see it, and frankly as well. 3,000
but it's the
horsepower.
next iteration of an existing system.
But it's a design. It's not manufacturing anything.
I think there should be, there are restrictions. You have to be licensed to carry a weapon.
Addiction, and I think that if we took a more compassionate approach, we might find more of a solution.
Radical swing of the pendulum. Now we're, it's more liberal, more progressive, more.
It's time for us to honor those folks who, send comments to it.
And hello again. I'm Joe Spina, and this is Frankly Speaking, where truth is our mission, reality our realm, set as we see it, and frankly as well, with myths to dispel. And to dispel those myths, Paul Crowley.
Hey, Joe.
How's everything?
Good. How about yourself?
You're looking well.
Yeah.
I did vote already. I did early voting. I didn't realize you could do that downstairs in
Today,
107.
this is the first year in Massachusetts.
Really?
Yep.
And I was kind of fascinated because I had a hard time actually finding a question I was looking to answer, and that would be on recreational marijuana.
Yep.
And it was like on a separate sheet, so I'm wondering whether that's going to get undercounted or whatever. Yeah. But let's go to that.
So can I ask about that? So
yeah.
What's the process for, there's one place in the city, and it's probably
Room 107 downstairs.
It's in the basement of City Hall.
Yeah.
So anybody who's registered goes down and they just match up their name against the registration list and they give them a ballot? That's
very good, Paul. It gets a little more
do you
complex.
have to tell them where you live or all that kind of stuff?
A little bit like that. They start by this. What's your last name? Because everything's alphabetical, right?
Yeah.
So you would go down there, and I bet you'd say Crowley.
Yeah.
And then they'd ask you the operative question, what's your first name? And then they ask you a few more, and before you know it, they got you at your home address and everything else.
Right.
But you know what? There's really no check. If you think about it, nobody asks you for your ID.
No.
They just check it off and they give you, although you do have to sign. You have to write your signature on an outside. It's like an absentee ballot.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
But they don't really have they don't match it up against an existing signature on file.
Well, what they do is they give you like a manila envelope
Yep.
with everything packed in there, and then you have to sign your name, then you have to print your name, your address, and everything else.
You
So
put it
it's-
in an envelope and seal it?
Yep. After
So
you
it doesn't
finish
go
it,
into the machine?
it goes into the machine after sealed.
But so it doesn't get counted until Election Day?
Probably right.
Yeah. Because
Probably
they
right.
can't see what you selected, right? Yeah, I was reading this
I voted for myself again, by the way.
Got a chance of winning this time?
No, last time I voted 4 times in the primary for myself. I only voted once for myself. I voted against Steph Moulton. I wrote my own name in. Which I think, by the way, folks, would make a much better.
Is there an
congressman.
option on the ballot to go straight Democrat or straight Republican?
No, I didn't see that.
Because they do that down in Texas.
Oh, really?
And I was reading today that in Texas, somebody, at least it happened so many times that they had to switch to manual ballots down there, starting today. Because if you selected straight Republican,
It was flipping the other way?
it gave Hillary Clinton the vote.
I did.
Yeah.
That's called rigged.
Rigged.
Paul. Yeah, it's called rigged.
But that's not just me speculating. This is from the Secretary of State in Texas saying this. So it's real.
Well, Paul, a friend of yours, a national figure whom you look at as being the second coming of Satan or Lucifer, otherwise known as George Soros,
Yeah.
happens to control the ballot machines in 16 states. How can you trust a count in those 16 states with that guy controlling
Yeah, where he will
the ballots?
He's a guy who will stop at nothing to get the Democrats elected. Stop at nothing. Remember that phrase. Stop at nothing.
Well, how about the CEO, not the CEO, the COO of Facebook?
Right.
Cheryl, whatever her name is. She said the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean.
What about the
but
guy-
She has influence over the social media component and trending and things like that.
Of course. Her name's Sandberger, by the way. And how about on top of that, the fellow who's the head of Goldman Sachs? He came out the other day and he's
Right.
1,001%.
Here's something funny that people don't fully understand. I know we're supposed to be talking. This is the Lynn segment, but think about this. In 2007 and 8, prior to the first election that Obama won,
Yeah.
everybody was up in arms at the Republicans for creating the Great Recession, right?
Oh, yeah.
It was the Republicans and it was Wall Street and all the stuff, right? So now, we're in 2016, we're going through an election cycle, and the Republicans have absolutely zero support from Wall Street. It's all going to Hillary Clinton. Yet we're going to vote for Hillary Clinton because why? Because we want Wall Street to run the country again?
Paul,
What's wrong with this picture?
I've been telling you and the folks out there for the last month that she's the perfect Republican candidate. Haven't I
Right.
said that?
Yep.
All right. Is there any truth to that? Absolute truth to that.
Right, yeah.
All right. Now, meanwhile, I'm on listening to her and Elizabeth Pocahontas, whatever last name is, up there in New Hampshire. They're all pushing like crazy. And what are they talking? Oh, we're going to go after the guys at Wall Street. I said, what? She's sitting next to Liz Warren, both of whom are multimillionaires, right?
Right.
In fact, I think Hillary Clinton's sitting on about $250 million
Right.
that she never worked for.
Right.
What she got from Wall Street.
She was broke when she left, when Bill Clinton...
Self-proclaimed broke, right?
Right.
She's had a marvelous run since they left the presidency. Can you imagine what's going to happen when they get back in?
Right.
We know what we better do? We better lock up Fort Knox.
All she needs to do to keep that money flowing,
Yeah.
all she has to do is keep doing what she's told. The puppet master. Marionette.
But here's the other one that's a classic. I mean, this is, folks, you couldn't write a script for this, right? Now, you know how they've been blasting Trump as being Putin's buddy?
Yeah, it turns out Podesta is his buddy. But that doesn't matter.
Oh, no, it doesn't matter. And that's what.
But it's okay because Podesta's connected to the Democrats, so
Wait a
it's
minute.
okay.
Who sold Putin 20% of our uranium supply?
Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, exactly. Billy and Hilly. That's pretty good. So, anyways, the ballot question. I just got this from our director, and it's the early voting, and it's going to run through.
Election day?
Let me see. Today's the 25th. The rest of this week, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, from 8. Well, actually, it goes from 8:30 to 4 o'clock tomorrow and Thursday, and 8:30 to 12 o'clock on Friday. And then the following week, up to it shuts off on the 4th.
Right, so they'll do it right up through the Friday before the election.
Right, and the schedule will be every day to 4, except Tuesday it goes to 8, and on Friday to 12:30,
So-
which I think is normal hours.
So,
here.
Joe, I don't want you to be cynical about this, but can you just tell me what is the intent behind early voting? Why do we do it? I mean, in theory, if you wait if everybody has to vote on the same time, they in theory have the opportunity to get all the information up to and including the last day before they make up their mind, right? So somebody who votes today won't have the benefit of knowing something that might happen between now and election day. So what is the value of it? What was the intent behind coming up with this? Was it to make sure that more people voted? Well, I don't get it.
Paul, you're playing games with me here now.
No,
Cynical,
I'm not.
huh?
I'm
Skeptical,
You
huh?
can't be cynical about it. I want you to be
look,
realistic.
Isn't it self-evident? I mean, realistically, there should never be early voting.
Why?
Because you don't know what events are going to take place for precisely what you say. The dynamic changes. There's variables. And all of a sudden, you may have voted for someone on a certain predicate to which you find out that that's exactly false. For example, WikiLeaks.
So then the success of one party over another is going to be based on their ability to organize early voting better than the other one, right?
Well, shame on the Republicans because they're so terrible at organizing.
Yeah.
Shame on the Republicans because they have been pushed around by Obama like cupcakes, okay? And the worst of the crew happens to be Paul Ryan.
Right.
So let's get back to the November 8th ballot questions, a couple of them. And we did this last week, which the question 2.
Yes. That's the charter schools.
Yeah, I was, that's one of the questions I was talking to the mayor about, with Jim LaMotta, by the way, a great guy.
Yep.
And met his wife, a lovely lady, in front of my favorite place, the 7-Eleven store, while I was buying scratch tickets so I can support the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. In any case, the problem with 2, if you think about it, it makes sense that we should have choice and should be competition.
Yes.
The fundamental problem, however, is that if you take a student in the city of Lynn that goes to whatever school, call it Lynn Tech, and that person decides to go to KIPP Academy, that money that's allocated for that student goes from Tech to KIPP, which is okay because it's a zero-sum game. The problem is if he gets thrown out of KIPP and goes back to Tech, the money doesn't come back.
Right.
That's the problem. Now, I'm saying that that's easy.
But why don't they fix that, right? Yeah.
Good point, Paul.
Yeah.
Now, here's the fascinating part about it. This is what I want to get to. Who do I see who are for no? I shouldn't say for no. You know, are going to vote no. Pushing for.
Who are opposed to question
Or
two.
opposed to it. Danny Kael and Creighton and Tommy McGee and all these folks who happen to be in the legislature, and they could change that little quirk, which is simple, and everything works out fine. But do they do it, Paul? Or would they rather do the bidding of the union? And by the way, is it any surprise that Brian LaPierre would be gung-ho opposed to it, right?
What were you telling me earlier about the organized minority? I mean, and that would be, teachers union is part of the organized minority, right? They control everything.
Well, let me get to that.
All right.
In the year that my father was born,
1896.
1896, in Italia, the home of my parents, Sicily as a matter of fact, where fascism, by the way, began, and I want to speak to that. Well, I shouldn't say began, because it actually began in the Etruscan, that'd be over 1,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago. But everybody, they don't know history, so that's it. Gaetano Mosca, you like that name? He wrote a book called The Ruling Class. This is in 1896. Folks, listen to this because it's so why we need historians.
120 years ago.
Right. Very good, Paul. You're a pretty good mathematician here. He developed a theory that claims that in all societies, there's what they call an organized minority and a disorganized majority.
Right.
Who dominates?
The organized minority. And another way of describing the disorganized majority, middle class America.
As we speak now.
Right.
Otherwise known as the sheep that offends some people,
Right.
and the lemons, and all the herd that's not
Right.
herded, right? Now, folks, today we have a lot of problems with Iran. In the past, Iran was called Persia.
Yep.
And Persia was not a monolithic state. It was a multicultural, multi-ethnic empire run by an organized minority known as Farsi. The language that the Iranians speak, the dominant language,
Farsi.
is Farsi,
Yeah.
okay? So, it worked then. Don't forget the Romans controlled everything themselves. What were they? They were an organized minority.
Right.
In the United States of America today, in 2016, we are being ruled by an organized minority. The majority is disorganized.
And when we say minority, we're not referring to people of color or...
No, we're talking about
people's-
arithmetic numbers.
Right. Basically the elites that we talk
We're
about.
talking about math, right? And certain people mathematically fall into the privileged class if they happen to lie on their emails. Well, they didn't have emails back then.
Right.
So, anyways, Musca also says there are really only two classes. Forget this multi-class society. There's only two classes. The governing and the governed.
Right. Right. And it's it, two types of people.
Yeah.
Those who are in charge and everybody else.
Precisely. Very good, Paul. You got a little philosophy here.
Yeah.
And he follows, and this is his conclusion on the syllogism. So Musca says that organized nature of the organized minority makes it irresistible to any individual of the disorganized majority. Ponder those thoughts, folks. So, anyways, question 2. It's a difficult question to deal with. As an educator, I perfectly understand the principle of, in the city of Lynn is going to lose $17 million. It's accurate. That's each year they're sending kids over to KIPP Academy that are returned something in the order of 100 or whatever are returned back into the system without the money following it. That's not right. And statewide, it's about 400 million. So that has to be corrected. Then you can get a legitimate vote, my view, on that particular question. So this is one of your favorites, Paul,
What's that?
about that funny stuff, that recreational stuff.
Recreational marijuana.
Yeah, that's on the ballot too.
Yeah.
How do you see it?
From what I'm hearing on the streets, it sounds like it's going to pass. I hope it doesn't. I think that, that's...
What is the rationale behind legalizing marijuana for recreational use?
By decriminalizing it, you will reduce the burden on the courts and the police in terms of crime, and you will keep people out of jail unnecessarily, at least in the view of the libertarian. I think that's the best way to put it.
Don't they throw it in the same basket as, for example, alcohol?
Yep, and they can tax the crap out of it.
That's a good point. But alcohol can be used and not abused, right? In other words, there's a benefit to alcohol. Everything has benefits.
I think
and downsides.
marijuana can be used and not abused too, right?
In medical situations.
No, but what
Recreationally?
But what if you use it just to relax, and at the end of the day, you instead of having a cocktail, you...
Okay. Does it have any...
I mean, I don't do that, but
so it's
I don't do either.
It can be used as a stress reducer?
Maybe, I don't know.
Okay.
I mean,
So alcohol also is first a stimulant and then a depressant, is it not? It boosts
Yes.
you and then drops you.
right, yeah, mostly considered.
But
as a depressant.
alcohol has been proven, and I don't drink, folks. I do not like beer, wine, or any of it. Can't stand it. You used to fall in love with it. I know the old days, right?
Right.
So,
I'm not very good.
alcohol,
I wasn't very good at drinking.
some people aren't. And that's the problem with it.
Yeah.
10% of the people who drink can't control it.
Right.
But 90% of people can. And it's a food. And it's nutritious. Beer is very nutritious.
Hops.
Exactly. And so is wine. It's very good for you. Those cultures that drink wine with their meals, if you consume 3 ounces of alcohol a day, it's supposed to be medicinally in your favor. I don't know if that's true or not, but we'll throw it out there.
Right.
I don't find smoking the funny stuff, I don't think you can control it that well.
Yeah, and maybe you may be correct. I mean, so I'm opposed to the legalization of it for recreational purposes on a moral issue. I'm very reluctant to just say, go ahead, smoke all you want. It sends a bad message to our kids and things like that. That's what I get afraid of.
How do you control it when driving a car? Folks, I'm gonna make a confession here and now. At one time in my life, I actually puffed on one of those things, and I was in a car. I have no idea how I got home. None. It was the most horrifying experience of my life.
Right.
Therefore, I never did it again. So I wouldn't advise it. Now, other people might be able to
Right.
handle it. I want to get to opiates, because this was fascinating to me. And if we can put that up, opiates are beautiful. I mean, the plants they come from, the poppies,
yeah.
and they grow all over Afghanistan and all over Colombia and all over Turkey, right? And from the opiates.
It's in Colombia too? I thought it was.
Yeah, I
didn't
think so.
realize- I thought it was just in Afghanistan. I thought it was.
Not positive, but I'm going to take a flyer. that it says
In
those.
Colombia, it's the coca. They do the cocaine down there, right? I mean, maybe they're doing
Yeah,
heroin
but cocaine and or codeine comes from opiates, right? A little different here.
Yeah.
It's 2 different categories. One is found in nature. It comes from the poppy seeds, and if it's up there, heroin, opium, morphine, and codeine are derived from that. They're painkillers, natural painkillers. You know what's fascinating to me? An aspirin comes from a weed. Did you know that? Originally?
No.
Yeah. So most of our great drugs.
I just remember my dad telling me when he was a kid, they used to the equivalent of us drinking when we were teenagers was him and his friends drinking Coca-Cola with an aspirin.
Yeah.
Did you ever hear that before?
Yeah, that's
That was
another myth.
But that was before.
Yeah.
That was it worked for a time, but then they had to take the stuff out of the
That
Coca-Cola.
was way back. Coca-Cola actually had codeine in it, I believe.
Right. So
Yeah.
if you with the aspirin, it would kind of kick it off.
It was like snake oil.
But then they took the codeine out of the Coca-Cola, and then that eliminated that as a
was wise of them to do it, by the way. Now, in contrast to opiates, right? You have these things called opioids, opioids, very good. And that is synthetic. It has some association with, but it's basically prescription drugs.
Right.
Like Demerol, oxycodone, is that how you say it?
Yep.
Methadone.
Methadone, right?
Percodan, Percocet.
They created methadone as a stabilizing alternative to heroin use, right?
But their principal function is to alleviate pain,
Yeah.
which I can understand. Nobody should have to suffer pain. But here's the problem, and this is where I want to go. I was reading in the Lynn Daily Item. They were doing a story on it that's been a massive increase in usage and addiction and ODing and the rest of it, and they were attributing it to prescription drugs.
Right.
And no one mentioned the fact that we have open borders, and prescription drugs are, and, you know, there's a potency that they all have, right? They're measured. There's a quality factor in prescription drugs. Agree?
Yep.
But illegal drugs coming in from porous borders have no such quality controls.
Right. Other than to the extent that the guy wants to sell a good product, so he makes it, you know, the same way every time or whatever. But, you know, and I want to respond to that because while I know the intent behind, you know, dealing with the overuse of prescription drugs is one of the problems that needs to be addressed. So the governor has dealt with it. You know, there are communities that are dealing with it, and generally speaking, if we can reduce the overuse of prescription drugs, we can possibly reduce the use of illegal drugs and have in the epidemic that. But let me finish. Back in the 20s, the Roaring 20s, when they went to when alcohol, during Prohibition, heroin became a very popular drug. And the thing that the wise guys like the most about heroin, once you use it, you'll never stop. That was what they liked about it so much. So that was not somebody having a prescription drug and then moving to heroin. It was straight to the heroin. You know what I mean? So I'm not so sure that every issue that we have related to substance abuse is related to somebody overusing a prescription drug, although that is a part of it.
There was a great book written in the 1980s. It was called The Octopus, and it talked about the octopus with the tentacles, heroin. That was a created market. There was no market for heroin after World War II. It was created, and it was created purposely to addict people, and it started
After World War I.
No, actually it was World War II. Because what happened is that they were cutting deals all over the place. This is when the Soviet Union.
But historically, the gangs of the 20s were doing it.
But it busted open after World War II.
Yep.
You know, where they addicted. First, they addicted Italy. You know, and then after that, the rest of Europe and the United States. They swapped off heroin, and then they cut a deal with Colombia with the cocaine.
Right.
So you got one that's speed and one that's.
Yeah, and then they mix it together. And
It's brutal.
Yeah.
But the point I guess we want to try to make is, do we have that, is that they're all dangerous. And, you know, whether, you know, you can cut back all you want on prescription drugs. You know, the fault there lies is in doctors prescribing.
Right.
And
so I'm going to put on my tinfoil hat for a moment because I have a conspiracy theory that I want to share. We talk about, you know, the open borders and the, you know, should we have open borders or not and so forth. Afghanistan, if not the only, you suggested that there is in other places, and I'll grant you that, but one of the most prominent places for heroin production is in Afghanistan.
yeah,
We have been there since 2001,
that's right.
and it flows freely in this country. How is that? If the predominant supply comes from Afghanistan, what could we be doing? How come we're not doing anything to stop it?
What about Southeast Asia?
I never hear anybody talk about that.
Of course not. But
Why
it's not
not?
Iran's loaded with it, by the way.
But and they
Because it's
have
a
borders.
You know those international bankers?
So
The
you,
octopus, the book The Octopus talks about it is the amount of volume business that they do tax-free with heroin and illegal drugs dwarfs.
so are you telling me that the United States Army and the State Department are ignoring the free flow of heroin? Or they?
I'm saying
or
to you,
are they just smarter than us? Or how is it getting out and they're doing all this business?
You want to hear a classic? According to this book, now this was written 30 years ago, this book, okay?
Yep.
It's called The Octopus by an investigative reporter. Her name was, I believe it's Claire Sterling, if you want to get a hold of it. Apparently, back then there was no Apple. But the illegal drug trade in heroin and otherwise makes Apple today look like nothing.
In terms of revenue?
In terms of revenue and corporate
Right.
size and dollars generated.
Right.
And so it's such a big act of business and people are making a fortune laundering the money. They're grabbing 10% for washing the money. It's all illegal, but they don't pay taxes on it, so they don't mind paying the 10%.
Right.
So you get all these international bankers. What do you think they're doing?
Right.
You remember Scarface?
So you're talking about the organized minority, are you?
Of course, the organized minority controls everything.
Right. Right.
I mean, let me ask you something.
So keeping the borders open isn't just to allow the free flow of people, it's also to allow the free flow of drugs.
Free flow of
They
everything.
want the free flow of drugs.
They cater to the wants of people. You anesthetize people by drugs, don't you?
Yeah, but I don't want drugs. I don't want my kids getting involved in drugs.
Well, it's got nothing to do with what you want, Paul.
Right.
You know, there's a market for this stuff.
Right, but
I mean,
they generated it by giving a free sample and
you know
getting
what's
you
really
addicted. Right?
sad? What's really sad is if you go to some of these inner cities in which people are in dire economic straits,
Yeah.
and you got people driving around there and, you know, Hummers and the rest of it with a gold tooth, with all kinds of money, because they're selling poison within their own community.
Right.
Isn't that awful?
Yep.
All right, so that goes to show you about priorities. Did you ever see that on the news? Did you ever see any investigative reporter going out there and trying to talk about that and put those connections together? Oh, it's too difficult, Paul, and plus they don't want that out there. You get what I mean?
They kind of like it. It keeps us busy.
Yeah, you know what the Romans did to keep the population under control?
Bread
They
and
had the
circus.
games,
Yep.
the Colosseum. And they used to have naval battles, real naval battles, you know what I mean? A gladiator was until death do us part. So they gave this violence. It was like Super Bowl Sunday. You
Yeah.
get what I mean?
Right.
So, folks, you know, put things in perspective. Now, here's what perspective I don't like. If we can get up, and away, this is current, and this affects every one of us, you, me, and all of us.
Okay.
How about this? National Grid.
Yep.
7.5% increase on its way for electricity.
So, I mean, how are you not surprised by that? I remember during the 2007 and 2008 presidential campaign when Barack Obama said that his policies regarding coal and all that kind of stuff and
Would have
fossil
no
fuels.
effect?
No, he said flat out. He said it will necessarily cause electric prices to skyrocket.
Okay. And they are.
And there they are.
The only thing he said that was true, huh? Because he said you can keep your insurance and you can keep your doctor. That didn't happen.
Right.
And by the way, that's on its way up about 40 or 50%. Those
Yeah.
premium. So here I am, a senior citizen, grinding it out, okay? Worked all my life to put a few bucks away and the rest of it. And they're having 7.5% on my electricity bill going up. Okay?
Yep.
That's number one. Secondly, my medical insurance is skyrocketing, which, by the way, I feel worse for my children who are much younger than I, or someone your age, and even younger, because they're going to pick up the tab for all this.
Right.
They think it's a freebie out there. Oh, give me my iPhone.
Yeah.
By the way, who paid for their iPhone? That didn't, you know, if it come out of some type of miraculous rainfall, did
Right.
it?
No,
I mean,
not at all. No.
So, I mean, folks, understand this. Everything is going this way, and your money is going this way. Try put, you know, why would you have money in the bank? You
I
can't
know
even
they're
get
going to
1%.
start. Yeah.
All right, now want to hear the best one? Everybody, oh, the stock market's booming. Naturally, where's the only place you can put money?
Right. That's it. That's
Yeah,
exactly
it's
right.
artificial.
Yeah. There's no question about it.
It's the only place where you can put
And
money.
the
and get
interest rates, I mean, they were talking, what, a month and a half ago about the Fed raising interest rates 25 basis points, which is 1/4%.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of move up, right? And a month later, now they're saying they don't see interest rates rising for 2 to 3 more years. And they've been saying this since 2008.
Yeah, but they keep it artificially low until Obama gets out of office. You understand me?
They do that for every president, though.
Well, yeah, that's true. But in his case, it's been brutal because they have to make the claim that we dug out of a ditch.
This is more a bigger problem. Forget about Obama, Democrats, Republicans.
Yeah.
The problem is that they used every tool in their toolbox to fix the economic situation that we had, created by the big banks, right, which are now supporting Hillary Clinton, for you at home, all right? So the big banks, they're at the root of all of this, right? And they continue to make their money hand over fist, and they don't have to pay anything for our money. They keep the interest rates low. And who does it hurt? How about your savings? You have to, instead of getting some interest that you can live off of, you have to risk it in the stock market. It drives the stock market up, maybe. Watch what happens. I'm betting that before the election, there is a huge drop in the stock market.
Well, I'm going to give you a little something, and the folks out there. There are some places, in Germany, for example, where if you have money in a savings account, $1, you're lucky to get 80 cents back.
Right.
You get negative
They charge
for
a
having
fee.
money. They're charging you money for having money.
It's cheaper to put it in in a box underneath your bed, or in the mattress, or whatever they say. It's cheaper.
Well, in the real world, money, as we know it, medium of exchange, is worthless. I mean, why would anybody go out and buy silver and gold? Explain that to me. You know what? If you're starving to death and someone's got a piece of gold, says, geez, I'll give you the gold for the cheeseburger. Guy says, what are you out of your mind? I'm eating my cheeseburger, right? So gold and silver and all that stuff has no meaning whatsoever if everybody's in dire straits, correct?
Well, I have a different view on that. I think that gold and silver as a substitute hard currency, when everybody's in dire straits, is likely to occur. So in other words, a silver dime is going to be could potentially be a medium exchange.
If someone wants to buy it. What if nobody wants to buy it? What if nobody has any money, has no available cash, which is where it's going?
During the Civil War,
yeah,
back when it was a hard currency, there was copper cents, there were silver, and then there was gold and all that kind of stuff.
Precious
right?
metals. Go ahead.
It all got pulled out of the economy during the Civil War, so they had to have a medium of exchange. So you know what they started using? Stamps. They were taking stamps, like 25 cents worth of stamps, and they would put it in like a wax sheaf so you could see it from the outside. They would seal it, and they would write 25 cents on it, and it became a quarter, because there was no currency to exchange. So at some point, if you've got a cheeseburger and I've got a gallon of gas and I'm hungry and you need to get
That's Ballot, Paul.
right, but because you're not going to find enough of those kinds of deals going on, that you're going to need that medium of exchange to make it work.
All right, but the medium of exchange is an artificial construct.
It always has been, sure.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So when
But at least it was based on something that was tangible before. Now it's just they keep printing, which is different.
But even if it's tangible, I mean, Barney Rubble, remember him?
From the Flintstones?
Yeah.
Yes.
And who was Freddie was the other guy. Freddie Flintstone and Barney Rubble.
Right.
You think when they were dealing in their days that they were worried about buying gold from Roslyn Capital or whatever, stuff like that? Do you really believe that?
No.
No, of course not. So their big deal was who could go out with a big club and whack something over their head so they could have a meal.
Right.
That's basically it. So they used nature. I mean, what was capital then was fresh water, a warm cave, some lumber, right? You know, and they didn't even know how to grow grass, as a matter of fact, right? They were gatherers. So what I'm saying to you is, all of this stuff that we talk about civilization is artificial.
Sure.
Subject to blow up at any time soon and shortly. So this $20 trillion debt, in real terms, is meaningless. Because you know what? The United States could turn around and say, guess what? I'm not paying. What happens then? Who can force you to pay if you don't want to pay? So, political tolerance. You like that one, Polly? Political tolerance.
There's no such thing. Not in today's society.
Not according to North Shore Community College. They're going to have their 37th Forum on Tolerance.
Maybe they're hoping to bring together varying views to try to get them to at least be civil?
Paul,
Or is it just
Paul.
is it just an opportunity to bash Trump?
Paul, do you honestly? Oh, that's funny. Do you honestly think that people are interested in divergent views? They're trying to hammer you into being monolithic in your thoughts, right?
Right.
You
So
know.
political tolerance is code word for coming around to my way of thinking. Is that what it is?
That's a good way of saying it, Paul.
Well, do you know who?
And if not, what? And if not, what?
they have a group there. I forget what it was called. It's kind of on the same lines.
Oh,
And
what?
and the
Political
woman
tolerance?
who runs it, and this was way back. I don't even know if she's still there.
Yeah.
But years ago, before, who was the guy that used to be in charge of North Shore Community College?
I have no idea.
Okay. Anyway, so a few years back when I was on the city council, John Kerry's sister ran a group down there that kind of did this kind of stuff.
And his daughter just grabbed a ton of money from the State Department. How do you like that one, little number?
You're right. But anyway, so political tolerance in a liberal setting is, to me, is no tolerance at all. Anyway,
The other day, you remember Governor O'Malley, who ran for president against Hillary Clinton? Got
yes,
about a half of 1%
he
of the
he
vote.
was from Maryland.
Maryland, yeah. He was the mayor of Baltimore and the
Right,
governor,
yeah.
and he's completely out of the
Helped
streets.
run the inner cities right into the ground, and now he wants to be president.
He had, on TV, called Donald Trump a fascist. Now, I don't know what it is about left-wing politicians. They always call you, Paul, since you're conservative, or me, or anybody who's quote-unquote conservative, always call you a fascist. It's a pejorative. Somehow, fascism became a pejorative term.
Well,
Now,
I use liberal as a pejorative, and sorry about for you nice people who have liberal tendencies. It isn't meant for you. It's for that organized minority that behaves like they do.
well, liberalism or individualism is an offshoot, is a phenomenon of the 19th century. Okay, rugged individualism,
Yep.
Darwinism, selective natural selection, that came out. And then in the 20th century, it flipped. It went from individualism to collectivism, vis-a-vis socialism, communism,
Right.
which are the dominant isms. Everybody's out capitalism. No. Capitalism was trumped by what they called, Marxism, right?
Right.
All right. Now, I want to go back to this fascism because O'Malley is like you, Paul, comes from a tribe that has no idea what fascism is. I come from a tribe from which fascism came about. Folks, fascism, or the concept, the fasces, is nothing more than a bunch of sticks, 5 feet long, that are bound together in a red ribbon with an axe in there. The Etruscans, and they predate the Romans, were the guys and the culture that came up with it. If you see, there's a nice statuette of a Etruscan princess. And by the way, in Etruscan society, it was extremely tolerant between genders. There was no gender differentiation. Women owned property, women had rights. So it's a fascinating society. Anyways, the purpose of binding these sticks together, otherwise known as fasci, is because individually, guess what? They were vulnerable, they snapped. But if you bind them together in a red ribbon, what happens to them?
Become stronger.
Of course. Did you ever hear that expression today? Together we're stronger?
Right.
Yeah. Together.
Right.
So fundamentally, a fasci, or the concept of fascism,
Stronger together.
yeah, is to bind us together. It's a union, it's a league, it's bundling.
Who says that? Stronger together.
I don't want to say it. So any case, also when Rome...
So what she's saying is communism, socialism, that's what we want.
Precisely. But now watch this. Now here's the evolution. Now, folks, Romulus, who was the founder of Rome, was a Etruscan. First king of Rome was Etruscan, okay? And he used to run around with his magistrates. Now, a magistrate would be like sheriff cousins
Yeah.
or judges, right? Now, you can't put these people out in the street because they could be attacked by Black Lives Matter, for all I know, right?
Right.
So they had to have a secret service. They had to have bodyguards, otherwise known as lectors.
Okay.
Now, the lectors carried these fasci, these sticks, as a symbol of authority. You got that?
Yeah.
All right, so now we got it so far. Etruscans, Rome. Let's fast forward. There was no such thing as the country known as Italy before 1870. You understand it, folks? Italy did not come into existence until 5 years after our Civil War. They were a geographic term, but they were not a united people. The idea of the fasci was to take all these separate political entities and social units and bind them together as one into a nation united called Italy. In 1870, the Fascist Party originated in my parents' home state of Sicily, along with the mafia. But anyways, that's the historical aspect. When Mussolini took over, he was originally a socialist. After World War II, actually World War I, they felt they got shortchanged because Italy fought on the side, folks, of the Allies. They fought against Germany, against the Ottoman Empire, against the Austro-Hungarian Empire, with France, England, and the United States. After which, they expected territorial gains, because to be a great power, you had to have colonies and land.
Right.
They got shortchanged. Mussolini went bonkers, and so they created this thing called fascism, which they claimed supersedes the political constructs of the time, be that socialism, be that democracy, whatever ism you want to talk about. And
So is that to say that if it's socialism, socialism will be the order of the day unless I say otherwise?
he was totally anti-socialism, anti-communist, fascism, totally opposed to both. They said, and what he said, and what the fascists were saying, is this: it doesn't matter what political doctrine you have, because they come and go. All that matters, or what remains, is humanity. So they rejected concepts of statism, economic and status and classes and all that. They rejected all of that.
Right.
And they talked about that the glory is an expansion, imperialism. That's what people don't like about it. It's like the United States and its westward movement, or Russia and its expansion, or every empire you can think of. Empire was the vitality of the people, extending themselves. The organized minority, going out and conquering everything. They were the Arabs, the expansion of the Arabic state after Muhammad, right? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then he claims that they become decadent and they decay when that stops.
Right.
So that's fundamentally the theory, folks. I hope I didn't confuse you all. You'll be having your test next week. Study up on it.
So are we in a period of decay in this country?
Arguably. I mean, you don't run around apologizing for your power, and you might. The fascist Mussolini would consider that to be a no-no.
Right.
Love life, be proud. They thought that the great honors were duty and service. What's interesting about fascism, as defined in reality, is that although it's authoritarian, which it is, within its construct, it allowed and recognized individual achievement, individuality, which is an interesting hybrid. Today, if you're part of a social unit, they deny your individuality. I'm always fascinated by people like Ayn Rand, who wrote Atlas Shrugged and Fountainhead, because Ayn Rand was a refugee from Soviet Union post-World War II. Couldn't speak a word of English as an adult. In fact, she was, she ran into problems being Jewish. Wasn't a good thing to be in Soviet Union. They talk about Germany. Wasn't a good thing to be in Soviet Union either. So when she came here, she railed against socialism and communism as being absolutely
Right.
and warned us not to go down that road. And the Rand, you ever hear the Rand, the think tank, named after her.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, and that's Rand Paul. That's where he got his name from. Rand Paul, he was named after her because his father's a libertarian. She's the mother of libertarianism,
Right.
which you say liberal is a nasty word. I say liberal is a wonderful word.
Well, I agree. Liberal is a wonderful word. But sometimes when I'm getting angry towards the political establishment, I call them liberals, and it's a pejorative sense. In a pejorative sense, so I guess it's important for me to stop using that word as a pejorative, because there are so many wonderful people who are of liberal persuasion that I shouldn't
And liberalism is to be applauded. I have problems I have problems with losing the identity, your identity. I have problems with when they try to homogenize everybody into one. I truly celebrate diversity. I love diversity. You know, I go in my backyard, I don't have all the same flowers there. I have different flowers. That enhances my garden. It doesn't take away, you know? And, you know, I was talking to a wonderful, wonderful addition to our show, Behind the Scenes, about dialoguing, about learning from people that you may not have the same views with to bring you forward. That's what I hope that we can accomplish, you know, somewhere along the line, Paul. I know that you're of the same sentiment.
Yep.
You know, and if you don't agree, that's fine. And, you know, let's work it out. Let's try to figure out which way to go. But by all means, today, it's so shrill. I was ready to go downstairs, and I may right after the show, to deregister. You know, I really...
Yeah, you told me you were going to do that. You were going to
yeah, I was
go to unenrolled, right?
I go on unenrolled because I just can't lock myself into something that wants me to think one way and one way only. There are fine people with great motives all over the place, and that's all I'm interested in.
Right.
And I do think that the world is, and unfortunately, currently, is being ruled by an organized minority. Not that that's unusual, it's happened throughout history. But you know what, Paul? I'm part of the disorganized majority.
Right.
All right, and I'm saying in my best interest, I better kind of change this equation a little bit.
Right.
And it's a matter of peace and survival. Look, I think what's profound is that statement that ideologies, isms, whatever they may be, they come and go. They're cyclical. It's happened throughout history. The one thing that always remains
Humanity.
is humanity.
Right.
And I say, and I would argue, folks, that today humanity is infinitely better off qualitatively than at any time in history. I used to tease my dad, who was born in 1896, as I mentioned, right? And I said, good old days. My father said, what are you, crazy? Good old, what are you, nuts? I said, what are you talking about, Dad? When he came to this country, they didn't have running water, Paul. You had to go on the street.
It wasn't exactly a good old day, right?
No. They didn't have radios, TVs. You couldn't get a food supply. If you got sick, goodbye. You think they had any antibiotics?
Right.
So the good old days weren't all that good. So when you want to harken back to the Roman Empire, forget it.
Right.
There's no bargain. Any of these glorious times in the past. Look, this always, folks, this is a classic. Boston, Mass. You know how we guys with the wigs, oh, what a beautiful time it was with August, no air conditioning. Boston, Mass, August, no air conditioning. They used to have a big ditch right up the middle of the avenue. In the ditch went all the garbage, right? Festering with all these maggots and flies in August, the heat. You think that was good?
No, I don't.
Exactly.
But it's funny, it was only back in the 70s when I was growing up, 60s and 70s, we didn't have air conditioning.
Yeah.
Cars didn't even have it. It became a feature in cars,
What?
you know, shortly thereafter.
With what?
Having air conditioning in your car.
No kidding.
Right.
How about living in the South back then? I used to go down to Macon, Georgia in the 50s, and I didn't want to get out. I couldn't wait to get out of here. It was so hot.
Right.
That's opened up the South. If it wasn't for air conditioning, the South would never have risen from the Civil War, right?
Right.
But life is so much better today, and for anybody to deny that, now if we can just work out a couple of loose ends here,
Right.
we'll be way ahead of the game, right?
Yeah.
And I have a selfish interest in this because I happen to have grandkids.
Right.
I don't want my grandkids to live in a worse world. That's not fair.
So what makes our society so much better? Don't you think it's
If
capitalism?
we have open and honest dialogue, open and honest, free, if we truly, truly believe in the First Amendment, as opposed to this political correctness, and that you're vilified if you have a different view. If you don't happen to like vanilla ice cream, so be it.
Right.
You know, it doesn't mean you don't like ice cream. And we tend to do that. We pigeonhole everybody. Don't take the time to talk to them and laugh. You know, there's no humor anymore. You know, there's a lack of humor. You can't make a joke. Someone's offended by a joke, for God's sakes. You know, they used to call me the Golden Guinea. Yeah, I had blonde hair. Now, guinea is supposed to be a pejorative, you know,
Right.
for the Italian, right? Skinny little guinea with the meatball eyes, you know, and that type of stuff. You know, if you're offended by it, It wasn't meant that. It was a moniker that was given to a bunch of kids, and we had other names for other people
Right.
too.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
You know, and we took it in. Now, it's a different story if someone said it insultingly and meant it that way. It's a different issue. But with a little punk, a little humor.
Right. It was different than back then, you know? Society, you know, didn't take things so seriously, you know? I mean, it was,
Yeah.
it was like, chill out, relax. You know, I actually went and saw Mel Brooks this weekend.
Mel Brooks?
Mel Brooks, remember Mel Brooks?
Oh, of course,
So
Blazing Saddles.
Yes, in fact, it was at the Wang Theater. 3,000 people descended on the Wang Theater to listen to Mel Brooks talk about what it was like to make Blazing Saddles. They actually showed the movie, an uncut version of Blazing Saddles, which was, by today's standard, absolutely unacceptable in terms of. But it was really an interesting you know, discussion, and you know, essentially being able to draw the conclusion that you know, everybody was open game. I mean, he didn't let.
Before it was fashionable, he did these things.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You know the funny. You know I also love Young Frankenstein.
Yes.
He did a great job.
Yeah.
We got about a minute left here, I think, and so Paul, you have anything to say to our folks that I've taken up too much time myself? That's it.
I can talk.
You actually can. Yeah.
I'm stunned.
Yeah.
Actually, nobody's actually. We haven't talked at all about the new middle school, the new Pickering.
Yeah, we got to do. You're not going to be here next week, huh?
Next week, I'm going to be out of town. Yep.
So I may have to try to find. It's very difficult. If not, folks, if I can't find a replacement for Paul, which is difficult to do,
Why don't you ask the sheriff?
I will ask the sheriff. That's good. Blazing Saddles. Yeah, he'd be appropriate, wouldn't he? Any case, Paul, please hurry back, because without you, I feel nuded. Is that a good word? Follow us here at Lynn TV. Say la vie.